you can just see it. There. Young lamb. That's sort of unexpected, actually. I think my father said more were coming, but sorry, a bit windy down here. Yeah. Anyway. Oh, I know, they're not perfectly level, but it was only done with a... Where the hell I left it? It's over there. Log splitter. Log splitter. I got the log splitter one side and basically a sledgehammer on the back. And yeah, 2 more posts. Going there. I've just got to wire all these up with a little tie wire. And I've got another post. A bit more of that. And going to basically save this thing from destruction. Ugh. Just wire something off of that one. Put the one post here, round this, and then back to one of these upright wires there or something. Try and save this a bit from the sheep just constantly bang, 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 eating all the leaves off it, you know. That's them biting it off. It's all ring barked as well. That's them. Badly ring barked. They killed this one. So yeah, give it a bit of protection. I probably should have got the second gear just to trim around here, but I'm probably going to put this right out here or something anyway. But those sheep make a good job of messing these up, and they always bite for the bottoms. And then instead of the tree just going up like this, and that's it, you get like a tree that's up with all this bulky bullshit at the bottom, and it's all the sprouts that they bite off and they re-sprout, and you end up with this big bulk of crap just because of them continuously biting all the bottom. It's just what sheep do to trees, really. Same again. Bit the end off that one. A bit rough on the old trees, but you know, that's what you want them to do to the boxthorn, and they beat the shit out of the boxthorn, but then they also beat the shit out of the plum trees. So they've got one here that I'll ever really show, and I've got another one that I showed me putting a guard on that's right over there, was in the middle of the boxthorn, and then I've got another one that's actually beside the driveway, which some years it looks like it's got a ton of fruit and you come back and there's nothing, but it always looks very healthy, the one in the driveway. And then the other year it just got like absolutely massacred by bugs. And yeah, it's 3 of the plum trees that I got that basically never even get picked. And the one in the driveway does produce a lot of fruit, but then, you know, the birds tend to get it. This one I don't think does much fruit at all, and the one over there doesn't do very much fruit. It does like a dozen plums a year or something, but that one over there is probably, it's not much bigger than this one here anyway, so might even be smaller. Alrighty, bit of news on that, what's his name, Briggs and Stratton water pump. I was over at my father's. They've got a, they used to talk to my sister quite a lot on Skype, and then that sort of faded out, but they kept buying all the credit for the prepaid internet, and they got a huge amount of credit. Anyway, I was over there the other day, and of course that water pump's been sitting on his bench for a while, and he's been busy knocking out all these hydraulics and everything. And he said, I want to get this thing off my bench and get it sorted. And he put it back together, and he actually got the thing, like before, had done some chronic compression stroke and just about stuffed his arm, and it barely started chugging. And this time around, he actually got it to start and idle for quite a while. hopefully it hasn't done anything to the actual pump itself, because it was dry, but it was only going very slow for about, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes. And it has to go a lot faster to actually start pushing water, because you only had it running idle. You've got to get it, you know, around full speed-ish, you know, to get it to actually move water. Anyways, I was over there and he was going through one blooming internet video after the other about how to put them back together. And the ones that he was looking at had a throttle mechanism. Now, some of these were for different things, you know, log splitters. Some of them were just bare motors. Most of them were just bare engines sitting on a bench. But they had some sort of a throttle control. And with this one, none of that is actually there. If you sort of know what Briggs & Stratton I'm talking about, it's sort of like the one around 91, 92 model. It's how it sort of works is you've got your engine and your muffler and then your fuel tank on one side, and the fuel tank is sort of mounted on top of a bit of sheet metal that goes right down to the bottom, almost down to where the bung would be to empty the oil out, and then screws in to the side of the bung somewhere. And in between the block and that bit of sheet metal, there's these like two little cogs that are, you know, they're not like a full revolution cog, they're only like about 45 degree piece of cog, and those two bits lock in to each other, and they're sort of near where I think the governor shaft comes out or something, and that's your throttle. It's supposed to have a whole other mechanism right up beside the fuel cap that you grab hold of and move. That's all gone, it's all missing. And my uncle had the other little cog bit down below, which is the bare minimum, held together with a bit of wire, and my father said I might do much the same thing, and he said actually I might find the right sort of a speed and just drill a little hole through there somewhere and put a little bolt in just to lock it onto you know, full rev speed, or, you know, basically a higher speed that it will allow to pump water. And then you'll never be able to change the speed. It'll just start up and rev to that pace. But the fact is, you never would be able to change the damn speed anyway, because half the throttle stuff's missing. I was saying about a little L bit of plastic, like an L-shaped piece of plastic that was hooked to the butterfly valve that had an idle screw, and it would look like it was the wrong bit of, you know, between all those controls, you've got all these little holes drilled in these L-shaped bits and these, you know, little connectors that are on the outside of the carburetor where a butterfly valve is for, you know, a carburetor speed or a choke or whatever. And you've just got these bits of wire that go in the little holes. I thought they might have mixed the wire up, because the butterfly valve, the idle screw for it, is nowhere near touching where the idle's supposed to be. And apparently that is all fine, just so long as you get all your throttle worked out, because that one butterfly valve's part of the throttle stuff. Anyway, there's also another screw up with all this. Typical bloody Briggs & Stratton design. Like, I got one from the early 80s that you guys never even seen. It's 8 horsepower. It's a reasonably decent sized thing. It's got a proper tank. It's got a proper glass bulb, blooming fuel filter in it, the whole shebang. You know, it's well built. And then, of course, well, we got to the days of economic rationalism, and all that went out the window for Briggs & Stratton. And I must admit, a lot of cars built in the early 90s here are shit compared to the models before, and the models in the mid-90s. Just the 89, 90, 91, a lot of those cars are shit in the Fords and the GMs. And no different with this damn Briggs & Stratton. Anyway, this little L-shaped piece of plastic that is supposed to hook to, I don't know, a governor bit of wire, or the throttle mechanism wire, I think it is actually, and then also hooked to that butterfly valve using, you know, 2 bits of wire, one vertical, one horizontal, or something like that. That is too close to the muffler, and it seemed to be melted on the edge, and apparently the real one looks a little bit more defined, and this one, the edge, as you can see, the melted part, the edge of it is actually melted. And there's quite a high chance that it's going to continue to melt because of the radiant heat of the muffler, because it's so bloody close to the muffler. And you just think, that's just stupid. Why do they do that? Either the plastic's supposed to be high temperature plastics, like your high temperature rubbers that you use in vehicles, and they just didn't make it proper. They cheaped out and it's not as high temperature as it was intended to be. Or failing that, it's just a bloody stupid design, because they just didn't account for the radiant heat. So what we're going to have to do basically is, he said, oh, we need some sort of a heat shield, maybe just a bit of tin. And I said, all right, just a bit of sheet metal. And I said, well, hang on, how about we'll go one better than this? Instead of just having a bit of tin to shield it from the radiant heat, and there is little screws in a place we can put that in, how about we use a bit of aluminium? And I said, and on top of that, instead of just making the aluminium as big as it needs to be to cover that, make it go up higher, and then get the tin snips and cut like a zigzag in the top to make like spikes for heat dissipation, like some sort of a heat sink. So that not only is it acting as a radiant heat shield, but it is actually dissipating the heat itself, because I've either cut slots in it with an angle grinder, or snipped spikes into it with a pair of tin snips, and that'll allow it to dissipate off. So that's something that we're going to have to do to it. I don't think it's going to be done as quick as had hoped, and the fact of the matter is, what am I going to pump? I've got no bloody water line there anyway, and you know, it sort of needs like a 1.5 inch water line, like about 32 mil. No, it might even be more. The tap on it's at 40 mil. So yeah. But anyway, that's something that's going to have to be done in due course, but due to a number of other things, I don't think it's going to be done quite as quickly as either of us would have hoped. Anyway, that's the go with that, but it's definitely resurrectable, and I mean, $40 in rubbers wouldn't go to waste, just so long as we can make up this little bit of aluminium, and he can drill a hole in the throttle mechanism and lock it onto a higher speed. And that should be good. And I was like, when I heard he ran it for 4 or 5 minutes, I was pleased as punch, because the fucking thing's running, you know. And sure, we need to make these couple of little minor adjustments, a little bolt here, and a little bit of, you know, aluminium there, and that's essentially it. You know, we can hook water lines onto it, fill it up with fuel, and off we go. And that would be good, you know, because I know me $40 wouldn't have gone to waste. But anyway, that's a bit of good news there, even though I don't have anything to pump with it. But what I have been thinking, I mean, you know, like honestly, I sort of, I won't take you outside because it'll just start blowing, but boxthorn is funny. When it's not compressed, it actually stops fire from continuing, because it just, the fire gets stifled because it's too sparse to burn. I've had people tell me that the boxthorn around my house is saving it from fire, and other people tell me that I will, you know, it's a fire risk, and it's sort of both, because there's some of them that are dead and have collapsed on their own weight and are compressed and will go up like a bomb. It's like that one down there that I lit up, and I lit it up, and within 30 seconds it was bloody all gone, an entire bush. And there's others that are, you know, that won't go up. With all the trees on top, it doesn't really help. It also doesn't really help when a branch collapses on top, because then it does compress it for real, and then you've also going to have a burning branch in there too. Having said that, just due to the fact that it seems once every 9 months or so, or however often, at least every year or so anyway, somebody puts a bloody car on the roof out the front of my house, and one of these days one of those cars might go up, and if it goes up, I'm going to need a bit of fire protection. You know, and I'm a darn sight better off than a lot of other people in the fact that I've got 4 small fire extinguishers and 1 big one that sits beside the wood heater and one of those bloomin' knapsacks. But hey, if I've got this water pump working, I've got nothing else to do with it, I probably should buy myself the fire hose kit and a few other bits and pieces, and maybe run a few 1-inch lines, actually trench into the ground here up to the front gate, and, you know, different areas around here with quick fit connectors, and you can buy the end caps to stick it in to stop the mice and the insects getting in there, and get a fire hose and put a quick fit connector on that and hook it up to the pump feeding out of my main water tank, so that if anything does eventuate, at least I have a fighting chance of putting it out, you know, because I'll have a bloody 40 mil, which is the line on this thing, I'm not joking, the outline is, to work out, 1 5/8 of an inch. So she's got some fair flow, and although it's not a dual impeller, it's only a single impeller, it's still good enough to fight fires, because that one my brother-in-law's got is a Chinese knockoff of a Honda version of what I've got the Briggs and Stratton of, if that makes any sense. And that's a single impeller that he's got, and I've used a fire hose on his one for water on the veggie garden, and I mean, you can fairly get a decent blast out of the damn thing, even though it's only single impeller, especially if you're not pushing up meters of hill, you know, and because this part of, at least this area of the property where the house is flat, you know, that'll give me a good amount of blast. But if you're going to do fire lines, I believe you've got to really trench it into the ground to protect the water line from any heat. Not that it's going to be invincible, because it's got to come above the ground and then it's going to be affected by heat, but at least, you know, if anything were to eventuate, I'd have a bit of a chance. But of course, in the long term, I've got to eventually put a big fence up around here and get rid of all this box thorn, and then that will be most of the problem gone. But I'd still like a firefighter anyway, because, you know, better safer than not as safe. Alrighty. Oh yeah, got some cheap files years ago. The big one there, that's my father's, but the other ones, I got those 5 for like $2 or some shit. One of the handles cracked on them. Real rough Chinese made things, but they actually work all right. Anyway, here's where we're up to now. I had a few, because this hides under some particular cypress pine trees, it gets sap dripped on the bloody thing, so I had to wipe a few bits of sap off. I cut all this out. This didn't end up, the lines weren't quite where they were going to be, and I ended up making it a lot bigger and whatnot, but I've just, this whole thing, sort of alright, but there's a point there where your most convenient spot is that you sort of burn out and you lose some of the other teeth. So it's gone alright though. I beat the bejesus out of it, trying to cut through all this, and where it really is where your lip, jeez, I've got that much muck on my screen, I can barely see myself. See where the other piece is there, where it overlaps. When you hit that part, holy smoke, you're going slow. So I've sort of done this with a combination of the reciprocating saw with the hacksaw blade that yesterday I bent and stupidly touched the bastard, and holy cow, did it burn me. Anyway, went to go and try and straighten it up after having slammed away with it for about 10 minutes, and yeah, that's a stupid move. But anyway, we eventually got this out, and I've been filing all the, I just went over the angle grinder for the outer burrs, and then the inner burrs I got in with the file in sideways, and I've just been spraying that, and I've sprayed it from this side and that side as well, which is obviously your proper professional way of doing it, as well as that side and that side, to actually get those edges. The thing is, though, the inside is going to remain unpainted, obviously, and I also got the hole saw going. Oh shit, I was going to drill a bit there. And yeah, this will be me chimney. So in the front there is where you feed the wood in, and there's going to be probably a little bit of this shit that I was drawing on the other day, cut into a certain shape, and I'll try and hinge it off there or something like that. so I can sort of close the front. I won't be able to fully close it all together. It's going to be a bit of a sort of an open burn situation. I might not even bother closing the front at all, but I think it's might just be nice anyway, because it's going to draw the air through the bottom, and I always believe a lot more in things that draw the air through the bottom because they just seem to run a hell of a lot better, in my experience, comparative to wood heaters that have got like a firebrick base, and they just, yeah, the airflow's not quite as advantageous as it otherwise would be if it was drawing up through the grate. Now, of course, that's not a terribly heavy-duty grate and it won't last in the long term, but so what, I've got another one of these anyway, and people are giving them away because they get no other use for them, just due to the laws and technicalities of propane bottles, which I'm not going to go into. Anyway, I will probably give this a bit of a burn today in order to do another cheapo trick, which is get all the paint to flake off due to the heat, and then you go over it with the wire brush and the cordless drill, and that's the exact same thing that I've done with the wood hot water system that's around the corner. And that is your cheapest method of doing it, as opposed to getting it sandblasted, which will cost you a freaking ton. You'd be shocked at how much sandblasting costs. But I used to hear the prices in my apprenticeship because I was there when my boss was giving quotes, and they were fucking ridiculous prices. Anyways, with a bit of luck, I'll clear a bit of the what's his name as well. Bit of the surface rust I'll have to try and get off with the same wire brush. Anyways, this is actually made in Singapore. Now, we all know what Singapore is now. They're just a big commercial hub. Back in the day when they broke away from, when Malaya got independence and become Malaysia, the Chinese decided to have their own little section and cut off what becomes Singapore for themselves. And they actually invited 22 or 25 of the world's largest companies to come there and manufacture, and they would make it all nice and good for them. And that got a lot of computer companies over there, and somehow this was manufactured in Singapore, and I think it might have been made in the 70s. Anyway, it doesn't really mean much. But anyway, I'll try and fire that up. I'll probably literally sit it here and piss the rubber mat off and yeah, try and at least get all the stuff to flake off of this tonight. I was reading the tin for the high temp paint, and like a lot of these things, you know, touch dries in 15 minutes, recoat in an hour, and it actually said hard dry when heat applied. That's right. A little bit like Firebricks. You get the Firebricks in a pre-mixed bag of cement sort of thing, and it comes just like pre-mixed cement bags from some places, and then you can, you know, pour it out, mix it with water, and it'll set like concrete. But it's not fully done. It's only kiln hardened when the wood heater was used for the first time with Firebricks. And it's the same with this. You know, it's dry physically, but it's only properly, seriously dry when it first gets that massive amount of heat. So I was worried I might have to wait 24 hours, but I reckon I can light it up tonight by what the instructions say on the can, and we will have a go at doing just that. Whoa! Well, we're done. Finished off drilling a few holes down below. Some weird reason these galvanised ones only got holes at the top. Anyway, there we go. Real posts. With real stays. Not sticks out of the forest. Hmm.